at a mining site in the Galamsey district of the Upper East region that resulted in the death of some 16 illegal miners. The Lands and Natural Resources Minister and his deputy are flying to the disaster zone to get first-hand information as to why these Galamseyers defied directives to undertake the operations that led to the untimely death of the 16.
The small-scale mining sector in Ghana is central to the country's success story in the global gold production rankings. According to the Natural Resources Governance Institute, the sector in 2018 alone contributed some 2.3 billion Ghana cedis, representing 5% of government's revenue. The sector as of December 2016, according to the institute, shows the small-scale mining sector alone employed an estimated 1 million miners, with artisanal small-scale mining contributing 31% of total gold production in Ghana. The small-scale mining sector also produced 174,439 carats of diamond, representing 100% of total diamond production in the country in the year under review.
Economic historians will attest to the fact that for many decades before and after independence, this was the single most important enterprise in the economy. Indeed, from the resources of Boise and in combination with our timber and cocoa, it provided more than half the gross domestic product of the country at one time in our history.
Curiously though, according to the Minerals Commission of Ghana, the country in 2018 recorded 2.1 million ounces of gold, representing 43.1% of total gold production in the small-scale mining sector, the highest since the country started documenting gold production statistics in 1990. Ironically, the year 2018 witnessed the most rigorous clampdown on small-scale mining, with moratorium placed on mining in that space.
Yes, Ghana is the beacon of mining, especially in West Africa. Now, we are making so much strides that when it comes to global mining, if you're talking about the top 10 mining countries, you cannot mention without talking about Ghana. And therefore, we need to work together to deepen this for us to really get to the right echelons of the mining industry globally. Top 5 mining jurisdictions in the world, that should be our target, working collaboratively with the Minerals Commission, which is also a promoter of the mining industry in Ghana, to ensure that we reposition the mining industry to be the mecca, to be that jurisdiction which most mining investors want to look up to.
Welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. Thank you all so much, very much, for keeping your dials here on the show. And I have some messages on the back of the Galamsey issue, but I guess we can all still remain positive, irrespective of what our concerns are. There's this ardent follower and watcher of the space who says, can we first ask and resolve these questions? I'll take just that message and then we'll proceed. Says, when the president says that he's not going to deal with hearsays, that's just the beginning. Know that this will take us nowhere. The IMCM, that's the Interministerial Committee chairman, was caught on video admitting that party Hiansika, MPP party needs money, so some people should be allowed to operate Galamsey. This was during when it was banned. Number 2, the same chairman was heard admitting that over 500 excavators had vanished into thin air. 3, clear video showing military protection for Chinese illegal miners in the forest. He asked, do you remember Erastus Asari Donko's expose. 4. Arrest of over 50 Chinese Galamseyers after passing the 25 years jail law. 6. An appointee at the presidency caught in a clear video by Anas Armeyao on Galamsey fraudulent deal. What happened? And finally says there are several others. First, apologize to Ghanaians and let's begin to talk and stop saying you will not fight it on hearsay. All right, and that is from Dr. Solomon Owusu in Denver, Colorado, USA. Now, I guess for this segment is Kwame Jan, who is already here. Also, Chief Superintendent Azitaraga, who is Fleming, who is Director, Property Fraud Unit of the CID at the CID headquarters. And then Esinam Taboto, who is former registrar and former member of Council, Ghana Institute of Architects. Thank you very much for joining us via Zoom. Hello, Esinam. Okay, all right. Okay, so we have a little difficulty there. We will resolve it. Now, I'd like to start with you. At the Property Fraud Unit, you must have a lot of encounters. People coming to complain about their land, you having to deal with land guards. Of course, now land guardism is banned, is criminalized, and so you have a tool to deal with them effectively. What can you say about the land situation and the way people suffer just to have a piece of land?
Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to say something when it comes to land issues, acquisition, and the cases that they report with regards to ownership of land. I will have to say that there are so many cases that keep on piling up in many police stations, including my outfit at the CID headquarters. Let me just give a conservative figure to say that we deal with just immovable property, land and houses to say so. And they get an average of about 70 cases a week. But that is even because the CID administration has decided to regulate cases that can be reported or can be brought to the CID headquarters. Many of the cases are being dealt with at the districts, stations, and divisions. And it does not seem to be abating. It keeps on increasing in number. And I believe because the lands that people can access is getting finished, if you talk about Accra in particular.
Right. But these 70 cases that you get averagely,
yes,
what's normally the complaint about? And then what do you do about them?
Most of the complaints are about somebody had encroached on my land, that is trespassing on my land. So many of them are about trespassing. There are cases of people defrauding them by false pretenses. There are cases where there are fraudulent transactions. That means the people who sold the lands didn't actually have title to, or land that has been sold twice or more. And there are situations one single piece of land can be sold to more than 4 people. And many of the people do not even actually know that their land is incumbent or others have interest on it. One of the complainants told me that, you see, in Accra, land talks. If it is lying down and you don't go to develop it, you never ever know somebody also has interest in your land. But the moment you go there, whether you deposit stone or you bring a shovel to dig something, then you get multiple people coming out to claim or lay claim to that same piece of land. And we also have situations where people come to cause damage. Some of them may be causing damage to property because they are laying adverse claim to that portion of land. Others may be the actions of land guards. And land guards, I used to think that it was land guard alone. Before, when I got to property fraud, I realized something we have couched out as land conflict entrepreneurs.
Land conflict entrepreneurs?
Yes. They are the people who try to trigger off disputes on land, so that in the course of the melee, they will be able to grab more lands or get some piece of land from those conflicts. And they are the people who mostly sponsor the land guards, because land guards on their own are not able to mobilize that much. But if people are engaging their services, there and then you realize that we get more of them coming together to harass people, cause damage, intimidate, and all the carnage we hear about land guards is coming from that sort of organizations.
Yes. So what have you been doing about these complaints? As a practitioner, a lawyer, I have discovered many times that the cases have come to you and the people have had to come to a lawyer. They say, we have gone to property fraud. They called us to bring our documents, and they called the other party to bring their documents. We all went, nothing is moving on. Or at one point they say, go and look for a lawyer.
So the issues about land, not every land dispute is criminal. A bigger chunk of those disputes has to do with legal connotations. And those that are, when we are investigating, our focus is one, to isolate criminal ingredients inside the conflict. And if we can deal with that, if there is sufficient evidence to proceed, we do so. If we are also investigating, one of our purposes of the investigation is to positively identify the parties that are in the conflicts. Because if you don't identify the conflicts and the parties involved, it means you cannot progress anyway. Some of the people who even report these cases know very well that on their own, they won't be able to identify who is their co-contender or co-claimant on the land. So they come to make a case. They know very well that they don't intend that you conclude the case and I collect the land for them. But they know that with the assistance of the police, temporarily, the people can be stopped from destroying the property. Two, they will positively identify who their co-contender is, so that if it is possible to file a legal suit against them to perpetually restrain them from coming onto the land, then they can go ahead to do that.
Okay.
Those that we are able to get the criminal evidence against them, we also pass them on to our legal department, legal and prosecution department. Then we commence prosecution.
Have you procured a copy of the new law?
I have one. This was the working copy that I have been using here.
All right. Did you follow the discussion last week with Kwame Jan?
I followed just a few because my schedules are throwing me.
It's on YouTube, and at any time you just go to YouTube, look for Newsfile, and then you look for the Land Act, land law discussion, and you find that. So this must be a lot of relief to you, where land guard activity is now completely criminal, attracting between 5 years and 15 years, and also 10 years and 15 years. So how does this equip you? First, let's get Kwame Jan to help you appreciate what you now have, and let's see how that is helpful to you. Yes.
So, Chief,
yes, sir.
What you have, if you go to the section 12,
Right.
solves the problem you identified. You said the people who trigger the conflict, those who fan the flames for their own benefit. The law now says a person who personally or through another person So those people who are beneath, who are procuring the services of the landlords, and the landlords are in the same boat. So the landlords and their accomplices who are either planning for them or providing them the resources or the wherewithal to proceed and do what they are doing, they are both caught by the same provision. And if you go to 12.2, a person who uses or through another person uses force or violence to intimidate and so on. So your entrepreneurs, your conflict entrepreneurs are seriously captured by Section 12.
Right.
So you don't need to worry yourself now regarding the law. And your other people who are involved in multiple sales and multiple transactions,
including the chiefs,
heads of families and so on, are taken care of under Section 277.
277, okay.
Which has very extensive provisions that have replaced the provisions in Section 34 of the Land Registry Act at 122, which has been repealed. So you have now enough law. I think what you probably would have to do is I will donate some time to come to your unit when you are ready to give an orientation on the criminal sanctions under the new regime and how your system can pick it up going forward.
Right.
This I will donate for God and country.
So before we go on, he referred to Section 277, and let me just read just a small portion of it to you. It says that a person who purports to make a grant of land to which that person has no title, purports to make a grant of land without authority, or makes conflicting grants in respect of the same piece of land, those who are doing the multiple sales, to more than one person, commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine not less than 7,500 penalty units and not more than 15,000 penalty units. That's like 180,000 Ghana cedis. Or to a term of imprisonment not less than 7 years and not more than 15 years or both. And then the earlier ones that he referred to also include those you mentioned, people who are extorting money, and those who are seeking to prevent those who have land and are seeking to develop. They too will be liable to 5 years minimum and 15 years maximum.
Thank you.
Right. So let me get the view briefly of Esinam on what she has to say about this new regime and with her experience, what we should be doing. Then I'll come to Kwame Jan to continue where we left off last week. Thank you very much for joining us, Esinam.
Thank you very much. The new regime is quite exciting in terms of having this particular land bill has tried to harmonize the laws and put together some additional information which is of concern in the country. And so it's a step in the right direction. For example, I mean, before there were so many laws affecting land, but this has repealed several of them and has put them together, adding other issues which need to be addressed as a country. So some of the other issues I'll speak about is, for example, when it comes to spouses, especially women who have been sidelined in terms of marriage. Whenever the marriage is over, they most often either get thrown out or there are issues concerning in having part of whatever property is left. It's quite serious because women already don't inherit their fathers generally, and the systems which were in place before were more sympathetic to women, giving them, some property to farm on or something like that. But now that has changed. So it's nice to see that women have access to property now through spouses and through your marriage, and that both have to acquire property together. But then the implications of land are very serious. The law is good, but we need to think about how we are actually going to implement it as a nation, because the problems with land are actually hindering a lot of investment. They are hindering progress. The Ghana Real Estate Developers Association has complained very extensively that almost all the members are in court concerning land. We've heard about real estate developers who built houses, and the entire housing development has been demolished because they find out that the land did not belong to those who it is supposed to belong to. We've heard about cases of land which have been in court for several years. Recently, a few years ago, we heard about some judgments somewhere around Ajiringano, where all those people living there are not even sure who's going to come tomorrow to come and claim their homes. We've heard about some other judgments around the Spintex Road, where there's a judgment which has been given after several years. Some people have lived there for over 30 years, and all of a sudden they find out that they never bought the land from the right person and that the houses are at stake. We have another situation where land has been leased for housing. So, for example, the Teshinungwa Estate, very soon that, and even in airports, residential area, and especially even in the Laboni area, there are lots of houses which were acquired many years ago, and you find out that their leases are about to run out. So it's quite comforting to know that this law sort of obliges people to be able to renew their leases, because we already have a housing deficit of over 2 million, which means about 8 million people in this country of 30 million are living in substandard and overcrowded accommodation. So if there is no reliable land or there's a limit to reliable land for investment, for housing, or for farming or any other activity, it's quite a crisis that we have in this nation. And it's getting to a point where it's making land acquisition very unattractive for investment. And we need to really think about how we're going to implement this law, because it's now just on paper. There are certain recommendations in there where they are talking about looking at actually giving power to those who own land to be able to administer it properly, to be able to sell it in the in the interest of the family. But then this land bill has to be harmonized with the Land Use and Spatial Planning Act, which is another act which has been harmonized. So many laws which have been put together in the modern direction. But what I find missing between this land bill and the Land Use and Spatial Act is the housing policy. Because when we talk about housing, we are not talking about housing alone. We are talking about space that everybody wants and needs for some sort of activity. Everybody needs a space to live, a place to work, a place to bath, a place to send your children to school, and a place for your health, etc., etc. Now, the missing link between the Land Bill and the Land Use and Spatial Planning Act is the housing policy, which is the policy which will actually let professionals be at the helm of affairs. We need to step away from doing things as they've always been done, because we have a crisis which is going on. People are actually getting sick from the sort of environment that we have. Access to certain houses is almost impossible. We've seen how fires are in the markets, where the whole market can be razed down. We've been going this way for a very long time, and as a nation, we need to structure things properly. The architect has been trained to collect population data, and we should collect that population data in all communities and use it to provide the facilities that the community needs, in collaboration with the planners, the engineers, and everybody else in the built environment. We should stop doing things just to please people. We need government to actually put its foot down and say enough is enough, because the cost to the nation is so immense. The people who get sick and the implications on the national health insurance, those who don't even have space to go to school or who have toilets to go to school, all these are issues that have to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, so Last week, you began a journey of taking us through about 30 of these innovations. We couldn't do so much, but we did interesting aspects of them. So let's attempt to see how much more we can do today, including, acquisition of bare land and issues of dispute settlement, the questions of restrictions on foreigners who are holding, and more interestingly, electronic, process in the dealing with the land, or if you like, also the time that you cannot, register the land if you didn't take steps in good time.
Okay, Samson.
Right.
Because of what Esinam said, let's start with renewal of leases.
Okay.
In the course of the initial stakeholder consultations, which led to this act, we had a major concern expressed by Ghanaians regarding the coming to an end of leases and whether the legal system was sufficiently robust to be able to protect lessees. So she talked about Teshinungwa Estates. If you got a lease for 50 years, and 50 years is tomorrow, or 50 years is 31st December 2021, if you applied the law, as they will say in Latin, stricto sensu, strictly as the law is, then at the end of a lease, all the structures that have been attached to land, so as to effect a permanent improvement on the land, would have the character of landlord's fixtures. So at the end of a lease, the house which is sitting on the land, which technically is also land, has to go to the lessor. So 50 years, your mansion in Teshinungwa, you pack your bags and you leave because the lease has expired by a fluxion of time.
They gave you the land for 50 years.
For 50 years.
And you built a house.
Yes.
50 years have come. You pack and leave.
Yes.
And you say, what's the new approach?
And the new act in section 50, starting from 9, says, if you are an indigene of a place and you got bare land for residential purposes or to farm perennial crops on the land, or you build a commercial or industrial property on the land, if you are an indigene and you got a lease from where you hail from, because the law defines an indigene as somebody who hails from a place in accordance with the relevant customary law. So if you are an indigene and you got land as a lessee in this context for residential, crop farming, perennial crops, or commercial or industrial property developed on the land, the law says the lease shall be automatically renewed at the end of the term for a similar term, subject to conditions that will be negotiated.
So the one who gave it to you doesn't have power to say get off.
No way.
All they are entitled to is a renewal.
You are entitled to a renewal automatic, subject to negotiation of the terms.
Okay.
And the law then goes ahead to say that in the event you are not able to agree on the terms, go through ADR in accordance with the ADR Act, which is our own law,
2010.
ADR 2010 Act 798. If that fails, go to the High Court. So at least going forward, those who have leases of lands from where they hail from, who have developed those lands, are protected.
Right.
Because you have an automatic renewal.
Those who are not indigents.
Now, those who are not indigent, provision has been made for them in section 50, subsection 11. That if you are a Ghanaian, but you don't hail from a place, and you got bare land there, and you put up a building, unless the the lease itself says it shall not be renewed, unless the lease itself says it shall not be renewed. Section 50 subsection 11 says there is an implied term that it shall be renewed for the same term, a similar term upon expiration.
That is, even if the lease or the document is silent on renewal.
Exactly, because the document could be silent on renewal, or the document could give a discretion to the lessor whether they would renew or they would not renew.
Why are we making it into law in the way it has been done? Because is that not what we already do? People get land for 99 years, and upon the expiration of the 99 years, the ones who took it don't get asked to get off.
Samson, have you seen a 99-year lease come to an end in this country in our recent memory? The answer is no.
Okay.
We gathered information across the country, and we anticipated that the coming into an end of certain leases of properties of value will create a lot of stress for the legal system. So the most prudent thing to do was to do this kind of crafting.
Okay.
So that there is an implied term that it shall be renewed, to give some respite, because most people we encountered in the course of the early days negotiations were saying so, because most Ghanaians also didn't know that at the end of a lease period, you would have to let go your building on the land. They go to a real estate person, they come and they have bought land.
Yeah.
You know, that thing, I have bought the land.
Yeah.
They use buy in place of lease. So they were not, most people were not expecting that at the end of 50 years, the house and the land goes. So, and then provision has also...
So what are you saying? We don't buy land?
Yes, you have a lease of the land. You can use buy if you have a freehold. Because the freehold interest runs perpetually and is of indefinite duration. So you can, in a loose sense, say you have bought the land. But if you have a 99-year lease, a 50-year lease, you haven't bought land as such.
Okay.
You know.
All right.
So there is also a provision where you take the lease of land from the Republic as a citizen. That is also subject to automatic renewal. Right. If you have a lease, so if government lands commission has given you a 50-year lease of airport residential area, at the end of 50 years, section 5012 is saying you have an automatic renewal subject to terms that would be agreed. But where the lease is in respect of commercial property, the automatic renewal of government does not apply.
If it's in respect of commercial property, because of Supreme Court's decision.
And if, for example, the lease property is required for redevelopment, if government, so you have a property in Ridge or cantonments or Roman Ridge on government land, lease for 50 years. 50 years has expired, and the Republic of Ghana has found that maybe the land use of that area is not densified enough. You know, one house sitting on an acre or 2 acres, 3-bedroom on an acre, another 3-bedroom on an acre. That's not prudent land use. So the Republic of Ghana decides to redevelop that area. This law is allowing the Republic that at the end of the term first granted, the Republic not to renew and redevelop the place. So, but generally, if it is for residential purposes, it is implied that there is automatic renewal.
Yeah, so I was asking the way I did because I wanted to know the automatic renewal, whether it affects commercial leases in the face of the Supreme Court's decision in Miracle versus Tete 2011.
Because the Supreme Court decision is 2011 and this is statute.
Right.
In 2020.
Great.
So one would operate on the assumption that the drafters and Parliament knew about the Supreme Court judgment.
The legislation will override the judgment.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that they have overridden the decision of the Supreme Court.
So if I have property and definitely it's for a lease and there's a time on it, practically what am I supposed to be planning to do when it's getting closer?
Under normal circumstances, you don't wait until one day before the lease expires. If, for example, it is government land, you are better off by 5 years to the end, you notify government of your intention to have a renewal.
Okay.
So the process will start and you have a seamless status. In fact, in some cases, by the 1 year, 2 years time, if you trust your landlord, you do a deed of surrender.
Okay.
And take a fresh grant.
Okay.
So that you have no overlap. Else, the lease negotiations may take time and it gets to a point where you are not in good standing. No, so don't wait until one day.
What's the best way to go about the pricing? Because property always appreciates, and people will look at the time you took it. You may have taken a lease, and the consideration or the money you paid was maybe 100,000, and so many years have come, and that place has become very expensive. So they are looking at, say, 1 million.
Yes.
How would you go about it?
Want to rip you off. Is that what you are saying?
Exactly.
Yes. The law says in such negotiations, they would have to look at what has been done on the land. So if I have put up a 50-story building, which has so much value, and I put it up 50 years ago, under normal circumstances, I may have already reaped the full benefits of my investment.
Okay.
So the law says you should take into account all of these factors. That's why the law is making provision for people to use ADR.
All right.
To negotiate the terms and conditions. So what the law has done is to kind of make the renewal obligatory and leave the negotiations on term to the parties.
Okay. How do I ensure that I'm making an acquisition and I can secure it for myself? That's a lot of the problem people face. They have gone, paid for something, took an indenture before they say, Jack, there's problem. Registration, I'm referring to. Something,
the registration itself will not give you title if the person who gave you the land itself doesn't have title. So if you go back to registration, you are doing two types of registration in this country.
Right.
There is deed registration, which previously was done under the Land Registry Act 1962, Act 122, which has been repealed now. And there is title registration, which was done under the Land Title Registration Act 1986, PNDC Law 152, which has also been repealed. And both deeds and title are now taken care of in the Land Act 2020, Act 1036.
How?
So, this country has two formats for registration. Like I said, deeds. Accra, the whole of Greater Accra region has been declared a title registration area. So, for Greater Accra, you can register your title to land. And MIDA carried out a pilot project in the late 90s around Senya, Ewutu, Breku, and so on, where they piloted titling in the remote or rural areas. But apart from Greater Accra region and the MIDA experiment in the Ewutu area and the Central Business District in Kumasi, the rest of the country is deeds, not title.
So deeds, I get my indenture, so then I go and register that indenture.
And a site plan, you take it to the Lands Commission to present it. Goes through a process, they put a stamp on it with what we call land registry number. Now, under this new regime, they will give you a certificate, even for registration.
Right.
And then they plot it in their records that you are the person who has been registered as the proprietor of that place. However, the deeds registry, even under this new system, is not vouching for your title.
That's right.
They have recorded a transaction between A and B in respect of a particular parcel of land.
Right.
it doesn't guarantee that the title, the registration confers ownership on you. No.
On the other hand, if you did a title registration, then the Lands Commission will issue you a title.
Yes.
That says that this is your
If you go through a titling process, the requirements of titling are certainly much more rigorous than the requirements of the deed system. So the registration of a title gives you what we call a state guaranteed title. The state, with its full faith and credit, says that you are indeed the registered proprietor. So title registry gives you an assurance that you are the person who is duly registered as the proprietor. I would even probably say that as the owner. Because that has gone through a certain process.
Okay.
But there is the new act has done something to the deeds registration which the old law didn't have.
Okay.
This is about priority of the instruments. Under the old system, if you presented a document to the registry and the document is registered, the effect of the registration takes place from the date it is registered. That is why many years back, if A submitted their document to the Lands Commission today, and B submits 1 year later, but for some strange reasons, B's document, which was submitted after 1 year, is registered first. That document has priority over A's document.
All right.
Now, the law has been changed that the document receives priority from the date it is received at the registry. So if you go and make Kululu in the Lands Commission, and my document, which are presented on 1st January 2021, you present your document 31st December 2021, but your document is registered first. Under this new regime, your document will not take priority over the first document which was lodged.
Okay.
Because priority is based on when the land registry received the document or the application.
That's going to resolve a lot of fraud that has been occurring.
So that Kululu thing has come to an end.
Very unfortunate, and I just lifted my head and the time is up.
Yes.
What a difficult way. I'm sure many people are just beginning to really enjoy the part 2 and they are sending messages expressing excitement.
The time is up.
Right. Okay, so you can get the Land Act, read for yourself. This is how it looks like. Put the camera on. Let's educate everybody. You can get the Land Act, the Assembly Press. You go get it. You can read it. It's simple English, and I've shown you a number of books, including this one. You can read for further explanation. Time has run out on us. We can't thank you enough, Kwame Jan, Senior Lecturer, University of Ghana School of Law. Also, we have had Esinam Taboto, who is representative of the Institute of Architects. Also here in the studio has been Chief Superintendent Azitaraga Femin, who is a Director, Property Fraud Unit, CID Headquarters. Now he has served you notice. Now they have the power, they have the law. If you try to interfere with anybody's land, they will deal with you according to law. And Nathaniel Atto comes up next with Joy Sports Link. You don't want to miss it. Bukum Banku, what's happening with him? You've heard of the boxer, that ring announcer trending in the last 24 hours. The ring announcer is Joy Sports Nathaniel Atto, and the boxer is Ghana's lightweight champion Michael One Bullet Ansah. A response to a question posed by the ring announcer seems to have drawn him an attention so far. You have heard them. He asked him, where are you going from here? He said, I'm going home. Well, join the Nathaniel shortly and enjoy that show. Tomorrow on the Law Show with me, I'll be talking about rent. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. I'm Samson Ladia Nyanini.